Imagine waking up, walking outside, and finding your livestock completely decimated, drained of blood, and the only clue left behind? These mysterious, almost surgical puncture wounds. For decades, this literal nightmare scenario fueled whispers of a relentless, bloodthirsty monster stalking the nights all across the Americas. As Brock Sampson from the animated show The Venture Bros so perfectly put it, Chupacabra. They're all over Mexico. Just hearing the name kind of sends a shiver down your spine, right? It instantly brings up images of this shadowy, supernatural predator. But what if the real story behind this creature is actually way more bizarre than the myth itself? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the unbelievable true story of the Chupacabra. We are going to peel back the layers of 90s panic and wild rumors to see exactly how a modern monster is made from scratch. We'll track its crazy evolution from a local urban legend in the Caribbean to a massive global phenomenon, and finally down to cold, hard scientific reality. By the end of this, you'll see how human psychology, basic biology, and, believe it or not, Hollywood special effects all smashed together to create one of the most famous cryptids of all time. Let's get into it. Section 1. Birth of the Legend. The Goat Sucker. So, the name Chupacabra literally translates to goat sucker in Spanish. Chupa means sucks, and cabras means goats. Pretty straightforward, right? But here is the wild part. This legendary name wasn't handed down through centuries of ancient folklore. No, it was actually coined as recently as 1995. A Puerto Rican comedian and radio DJ named Silverio Perez came up with the super catchy name while he was just casually joking on air about a string of local animal attacks. He had absolutely no idea he was naming a monster that would literally conquer the globe. Let's look at the timeline here, because the escalation is wild. The whole thing really traces back to the 1970s, with this localized panic in Puerto Rico over something called the mocha vampire. But the myth as we know it completely exploded, and I mean practically overnight, in March 1995, when 8 sheep were found dead with those infamous chest punctures. Just a few months later, in August, an eyewitness claimed a monster had slaughtered 150 farm animals in her town. Boom. The panic just couldn't be contained anymore. It hopped the ocean, migrated north, and culminated in huge, highly publicized sightings like the Elmendorf beast in Texas in 2004. Now, during this massive spread in the mid-90s, the myth got a really unexpected boost. Between 1994 and 1996, the Mexican government and local media heavily promoted Chupacabra stories. And historically speaking, this is widely recognized as a very convenient distraction. Think about it. Every single minute the public spent glued to their TVs, totally absorbed by this blood-sucking monster, was a minute they weren't focusing on the severe political and economic turmoil that was sweeping the country at the time. Moving right along to Section 2, Two Faces of the Monster, Alien or Canine. Okay, this is where things get super weird. The eyewitness descriptions, they completely contradict each other depending on where you are. If you ask someone in Latin America in the 90s, they tell you it was this bipedal reptilian alien. We're talking big red eyes, greenish-gray scaly skin, a row of sharp spikes down its back, and it hopped around like a kangaroo. But fast forward to the North American sightings in the early 2000s, especially in Texas, and the monster completely shapeshifts. Suddenly, the Chupacabra is a quadrupedal, hairless wild dog with a pronounced spinal ridge and these really prominent eye sockets. It's a massive inconsistency. How does one monster have two completely different bodies?
Well, that brings us to Section 3, the Hollywood origin story. Life imitates art.
This is my absolute favorite part. It all goes back to that foundational August 1995 eyewitness in Puerto Rico, Madeline Tolentino. For years, her super detailed description of that spiky, bipedal alien was the absolute gold standard for monster hunters. But then, an investigator named Benjamin Rodford dug a little deeper and found the ultimate aha moment. It turns out, Tolentino had just watched the 1995 sci-fi horror movie, Species. When she was later interviewed about the movie's alien monster, Syl, Tolentino actually said, "It was a creature that looked like the Chupacabra. The resemblance was really impressive." She had literally, unknowingly projected the Hollywood special effects she'd just seen in a movie theater right onto the real-world anxieties of her town. And just like that, the terrifying bipedal alien version of the myth is totally busted. It was entirely based on 1990s Hollywood special effects. The irony is just off the charts here. The original lore that terrified an entire region and sparked a massive global hunt was basically born in a cinema. All right, Section 4, Science Solves the Mystery. Predators and Parasites.
So, if it wasn't an alien, what actually killed all those farm animals?
This is where the cold, hard biological facts step in and clear everything up. The myth claims animals were drained of blood by a vampire. Reality? Blood just coagulates and solidifies really quickly after death. It pulls away from the wounds, making the animal look quote-unquote bloodless. The bipedal alien, we know that was Hollywood. The hairless dog sightings, those are just canines suffering from a condition called sarcoptic mange. The supernatural thirst for livestock, actually severe droughts were wiping out natural prey, forcing normal, desperate predators to attack penned animals. And those two classic vampire fangs, just standard canine predator teeth.
Let's talk about the number 300 for a second, because the absolute cornerstone of this whole legend is the blood draining, right? Well, a Puerto Rican veterinarian with the Department of Agriculture actually went out and analyzed 300 reported victims of the creature. Do you want to guess how many were completely blood dry? Exactly 0. 0. The whole vampire aspect of the legend was literally just an optical illusion caused by basic biology and coagulating blood.
But what about those super creepy, very real bodies they kept finding in Texas? The answer is sarcoptic mange. It's a horrible parasitic infection caused by mites. And when a coyote or a wild dog catches this, it is absolutely devastating. They lose all their fur, their skin thickens into this weird, grayish, elephant-like hide, and they give off a really rank odor. If you see a coyote with severe mange, you don't think dog. You think you're looking at some hairless, leathery, alien beast.
And the biology of mange actually perfectly explains the crime scenes too. This infection severely weakens these predators. A sick, mangy coyote can't run down a fast rabbit or a deer anymore. They're starving. So what do? They're forced to hunt the easy targets, penned livestock like chickens and sheep. Plus, because they're so weak or maybe inexperienced, they might bite the neck to kill it, leaving those puncture wounds, but then they lack the energy to actually eat the prey. Or they just get spooked and run off. So they leave behind an uneaten, punctured goat. Boom. A perfect recipe for a monster myth.
Section 5. A pop culture icon. The Bigfoot of Latin America. Even though science completely debunked the myth, the Chupacabra had already taken on a massive life of its own. It exploded into virtually every single corner of pop culture. We've got the alien fungus in the X-Files, Cartman hunting the Chupacabra in South Park, it being one of Dexter's accidental creations in Dexter's laboratory, terrifying beast horrors in Magic the Gathering, monstrous humanoids in Dungeons & Dragons, all the way up to the recent cute, misunderstood creature in the Netflix family film Chupa. It's everywhere.
Honestly, the Chupacabra has achieved something pretty incredible. It went from a genuine 1970s panic to a 1990s rural terror into a totally beloved, immortalized staple of modern folklore. Today, it's widely considered the Bigfoot of Latin American culture. It's a global mascot standing right there shoulder to shoulder with the Loch Ness Monster and the Yeti, which is crazy when you realize it was only named a few decades ago.
Which leaves us with this final thought. We've just seen how perfectly normal things, a scary movie, a really dry summer, a microscopic skin parasite can totally snowball into a worldwide monster panic, all because the human brain just loves a good, scary story. So I'll leave you with this. If an entire global monster myth can be born from a single sci-fi movie and a few sick coyotes, what other legendary monsters might just be perfectly normal biology hiding in plain sight? Something to think about the next time you hear a bump in the night. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.